welcome to the Fit and Healthy Today show. And today our topic matter is on phobias / panic attacks. And what occurs is phobias are overwhelming, irrational reactions or behaviors to specific objects or situations that tend to trigger a panic attack. There's 3 different types specifically that they normally look at. One is a very simple phobia, and that would be, fear of heights. Like with me, with my father, my dad threw me in a lake one time to teach me how to swim. That was the old way of doing things. And for a while there, I had a fear of water, and I still don't go in the ocean. I swim, but I still have a little bit of underlying fear of the ocean. It's there. But the point being is those are types of similar. They don't interfere, or simple. They don't interfere with your everyday life. But if you're posed in a situation, it makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. There's social phobias, and the largest social phobia is the fear of public speaking. Something very similar to what I do and my husband does with you when we do the shows. Or getting up in front of people majorly, or even in a small group. There's various groups like Toastmasters and groups like that can help you get over that type of an issue. But that's the second most common phobia. Agoraphobia, which 1 out of 20 people in the United States suffer from, is a fear of public places, and the fear is that you'll have a panic attack while you're in the public place. And what usually occurs is someone will have like a minor panic attack that turns into something major, and then they remember it and they're afraid of going into public places. This can be devastating from a standpoint of people lock themselves in a home and never want to go out again. When we look at phobias and we look at causes, there's a lot of different causes, but boy, I think the best place to start is to look back at childhood. What happens is it's when the brain associates some object or situation with a frightening or traumatic event. So I read one example where a little girl was at her dad's funeral, and there was a butterfly that was flying all around her face. And it was such a traumatic event, the funeral, for some reason, her subconscious made her extremely afraid of butterflies. And she had to go through some different various types of therapy that we'll talk about that helped her overcome her fear of butterflies. Something simple like that. Very, very common are parents that tend to be overbearing or require a lot of their children. They're overprotective, they're pushy, trying to get their kids to do things, and it makes the kids in a constant fight or flight mode. That can make kids tend to be panicky or have panic attacks or phobias as well. Now, there's also a learned behavior potential in all of this too. My mom used to go and recheck the doors. She was always afraid someone would, get into the house, before we would leave the house. And, for a while I can remember myself doing that, and I logically came out of it and said, this is ridiculous. I check it once, I check it twice, that's enough, So that's an acknowledgement of a phobia, but you can learn those behaviors from your parents, and then that, of course, then transfers into adulthood. And then when the rational mind comes up, or through therapy, getting you through those specific types of events is necessary. In my case, my rational mind just took over and said, this is ridiculous. Nutritional imbalances. Now, mind you, the brain is a chemistry lab, and it has essential fatty acids. It requires certain vitamins, certain minerals, nutrients, foods, good solid, good foods, the body's ability to eliminate. When those are missing, the brain does not function properly. And therefore, when the brain doesn't function properly, your view of life, your behavior, all of that is affected. So those nutritional deficiencies in getting adequate amounts of good nutrition, vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, particularly DHA and EPA, early on in life are very, very necessary. We'll sometimes see these nutritional deficiencies will trigger permanent or not so permanent thyroid problems, hypoglycemia, which in turn also cause brain issues as well, because your brain continually needs sugars. In my case, I'm hypoglycemic, and so I have to have a continuous supply of some source of fuel about every 3 to 4 hours. If the brain doesn't function right, it can send you into those type of, panicky or those types of feelings. Allergic reaction to certain foods, food additives, or chemicals. Red dye number 40 is a huge one that can trigger phobias or panic attacks because it literally is like short-circuiting the brain. It's what we call an excitotoxin in the brain, and there are various chemicals that do that. MSG, the same type of thing, that affects the neurotransmitters in the brain. Those also can have an effect on triggering phobias. Now, mind you, you get these traumatic experiences, and then the body rationally can deal with them or not. But if you don't have proper nutrition and supplementation, the body can't deal with them because it can't rewire something that's not properly wired to begin with. I think, I hear doctors say you can get everything from your food. And nowadays, maybe 75 years ago, you could. Nowadays, you can't. So when we go over some of the supplements, I'll spell out the things that I'm kind of concerned with that you may not get from your food that do affect your brain. Now, besides nutritional therapy and supplements, which we'll talk about later on in the show, there's various treatments that I want to make people aware of. Since we've got 1 in 20 people out there in the audience locked up, and we've got probably, I think more than that, about 20 to 30% of people that have fears or phobias, some of which do interfere with their life. The first most common long-term used procedure was something called progressive relaxation techniques. And you'd go back to the psychologist or counselor, and they get you to relax, try to relive the experience, try to retrain the subconscious to deal with it. Long, drawn-out process, successful. But there's since been a new type of procedure that a lot of psychologists use called neurolinguistic programming. And they'll use a keyword or a cue or something that will bring the brain into instant relaxation. When I do my meditation, for example, there's certain words that I use that within about 30 seconds, I can be completely in a meditative state. They're cue words or keywords. So you can be in a public place and just remember that key or cue word, and all of a sudden you say it and you say it, and if your subconscious is so programmed, it will bring out that relaxed state. Kind of cool stuff. You can do that on a lot of different things. Educational kinesiology. Now, this is actually using body parts to know that you can trigger certain other responses. Like, for example, when I'm in a real high stress state or I'm a little bit panicky, a kinesiology move would be, for example, and we've done this before in the show, is to grab right at the side, right above my eyebrows, that indention, and to massage that area for a good 30 to 60 seconds. What that's going to do is it tells my brain to bring me into frontal lobe, cerebrum, thought processes, which are very logical and down to earth, and out of that panicky kind of feel that you'll get with the limbic brain. That's what we refer to as kinesiology or educational kinesiology. Acupressure. We have various pressure points on the body. And interestingly enough, right here in our sternum, where we learn when we're doing CPR, you can place your 4 fingers there and you can compress that area and hold it. And it literally releases certain types of hormones, neurological response that can bring you into a more relaxed state and prevent that triggering of that panicky kind of feeling. So, as you're approaching and you're winding around the hills and you're afraid of heights, bringing you into a logical brain, knowing you got a good car and new tires and you got a good driver at the wheel, you can do various educational kinesiology or acupressure points that can alleviate physiologically your fear or panic attack triggering. Counseling, we talked a little bit about a few of the other techniques, but oftentimes getting to the nitty-gritty of why, like the little girl that was afraid of the butterflies, they did some hypnosis and got to the bottom of what the problem is. Sometimes getting to the bottom, once you know what it is, you can deal with the problem, and the counselor can bring some of that out. My favorite to overcome habits or anything, fears or irrational thinking, affirmations. And we use those a lot. And I've had people or know of people that write little stickies and put them all throughout the house, affirming, I am losing weight at a rapid pace, or I am a happy person, or things like that. You can use affirmations to reprogram the subconscious, because remember, your consciousness is the captain of your ship, and your subconscious is all the crew making everything occur. Your subconscious is where the majority of your your brain activity occurs. So very minorly in the conscious behavior. So the subconscious is your habits, how you handle things, the same things you do over and over again, and reprogramming that, oftentimes they say takes between 2 to 4 weeks, some people longer. And you can use affirmations in that regard to reprogram the brain and your viewpoint about a particular situation or a viewpoint about yourself. Diet and supplements. Now, when you talk about diet, you obviously want a diet that has adequate amount of protein, good fats in the diet, a lot of organic fruits and vegetables, because remember, a lot of these organophosphates, these pesticides, fluorides, all of those, they actually affect how the brain chemistry operates, so that you can't bring it to the cerebrum to think about something logically on how to resolve it and to reprogram the brain. So it's very, very important that you look into getting a good balanced diet, preferably chemical-free. A good multiple high in Bs. Now remember, the Bs physiologically help you deal with stress, and obviously phobias, panic attacks are stress-inducing. So those B vitamins, especially B12, B6, B1, B2, they help you deal with physiologically the stress. Calcium, magnesium, the citrate forms, they relax the muscles, they relax the nervous system. You're going to have a very uptight person if you're calcium, magnesium deficient, but not the carbonates. We're talking about the citrate forms that'll relax the muscles and the nervous system as well. There's a lot of good studies on inositol. So when you're looking at that, I know you'll see on the flyer it's anywhere from 6 to 12 grams, and that's quite a bit of it, and you can get it in powders. But they found some good help with this, with phobias, with obsessive compulsive behavior, and you can take divided dosages where you take 3,000 to 6,000 milligrams twice a day. And it literally will reduce that obsessive type of panicky, phobic type of behavior. Worth looking into, a lot of research regarding inositol. Theanine. Now theanine, I know I use it before I fall asleep or at bed at night. It doesn't make you sleepy, but what it does is it takes your brainwave patterns out of a high stress beta wave into an alpha wave pattern, and that alpha wave pattern calms you down. Omega-3 fish oils. A lot of my psychologists here in Lompoc put their patients on omega-3 pharmaceutical grade fish oil, not something out of a department store. Remember, your brain consists of those EPA, DHA fatty acids along with cholesterol, so it's very, very important to keep those fatty acids up. 5-HTP. A lot of, for panic attacks or for phobias, they'll put you on Prozac or some type of antidepressant. 5-HTP will induce serotonin production and therefore aid and abet the body's ability to oftentimes deal with stress, make you feel more joyful. That's something to consider, especially before bed, in order to help the sleeping patterns. There are a series of herbs that I have listed down. There's the nervine classifications, which include valerian and hops and chamomile and passion flower. Those are herbs that calm the nervous system down. And in low dosages, you can take them in the daytime, higher dosages before you go to bed at night. Take away some of that panicky kind of feeling. Ashwagandha. Now, this had clinical research in India, and it's kind of the go-to herb for phobias which lend themselves to panic attacks. Ashwagandha, 500 milligrams 3 times a day in an extract form, suppresses cortisol stress hormones, so you don't or tend not to overreact to situations that you're exposed to. Kava kava. Now, I know there was a lot of controversy about kava kava that regarding liver issues, but that was proven to be false. The only warning I have with kava kava is you can't drive a car or operate a motor vehicle when you take it, and you do not take it with alcohol. There can be some contraindications regarding kava kava. But it can very much calm things down in low dosages, in an extract form where you're getting a standard amount. And you can use it, particularly like it at night, but in very low dosages during the day. There's a lot more that I could discuss or go through regarding this, but that's just the highlights of it. You know, you can research it on your own and probably get a little bit more information, but at least I've got you going in the right direction if you do suffer from something like this. Next, we're going to be moving on to the exercise fitness portion of the show. I'm going to work on some breathing. Thank you. Hi, next we're going to be reviewing a breath that I know is great for anxiety, but also actually has some clinical studies for weight loss up to about 5 to 10 pounds within 60 days just with breath. Now there's a sequence of it that you would perform, and it's an inhale, hold, exhale. So the ratios on it that we have this on a sheet, and I'll have Bill put this up here in just a minute or so. But for example, you would inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 16, and exhale for 8 seconds. So why don't we give it a try? I won't do it quite as long so that you can feel. So just close your eyes and just feel your breath coming through your nostrils. So what we're going to do is we're going to inhale for 3 seconds. So inhale, hold it, now exhale it. So what I did in that particular sequence is I counted 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and so I inhaled for 3 seconds, 3 Mississippis, held it for 12, and exhaled it for 6. And what you do is you'll go through this sequence 10 times. Your body will become calm, but it does metabolically increase your body's ability to burn off fat. So you'll do 10 rounds of what we just did, and 3 times a day, morning, noon, and evening, and you'll find yourself much more relaxed, but better able to burn off fat. Next, please join us for the research portion of our show. Thank you. Hi, welcome to the research portion of our show, and with us today is Ralph Turchiano.
And thank you for that intro. In a research from the Journal of Biological Chemistry, we may actually have guys like fried green tomatoes for the first time. Well, they discovered that green tomatoes particularly contain an element called alpha-thymidine. Now, this is not to be too technical, but when alpha-thymidine enters the gut, it converts over to a form called thymidine. Now, the reason thymidine, if I'm pronouncing it properly, tomato, is that thymidine really helps build muscle, at the same time help with leanness. Now, this goes in the family of chemicals, for example, something called ursolic acid, which was originally discovered a long time ago in apple peels. And the research states this as follows: green tomatoes stimulate muscle growth, improve muscle strength and endurance, and it protects against muscle wasting. And what they discovered was that the thymidine actually had the reverse genetic route, or I should say reversed muscle atrophy itself. So what caused the muscle atrophy, or the cells to go in one direction, it actually sent the cells in another direction to build muscle, basically to increase strength and to increase endurance. Now, researchers don't know exactly how much of this green tomato substance is required yet, or how much is safe for personal use. Now, if we combine it to ursolic acid, knowing about 3 or 4 capsules per day is usually sufficient in order to create muscle strength and muscle gains and endurance, you could probably draw your own conjecture. But however, the green tomato extract, thymidine, has only been researched in animals. Now, the interesting part about it too is this. The animals that took the substance grew more muscle, but weighed the same. Interesting enough, because they also burnt or metabolized a lot more fat, causing the weight to balance out. So more muscle, less fat, same weight. Again, new substance from green tomatoes, basically called tamidine, may be coming out shortly, but keep your eyes out. You never know when it's going to be around the corner. All right, next segment. Now, remember the scariness, or I should say, of appendicitis? Well, this was produced in the April 12th issue, 2014, Journal of the American College of Surgeons. Now, keep in mind, what they did was this. They gave a course of antibiotics for appendicitis as opposed to traditional surgery. They had 30 people in the study. Now, originally they had 77 people they had cornered for it. 47 of them decided to go for the surgery because they were uncertain. 30 of them decided to go for the antibiotic course. Now, they just didn't take antibiotics blindly. What they did is a CAT scan and or ultrasound. They made sure the white blood cell count was below 18,000. They had no calcified stool or anything else like that in the appendix itself, and also made sure the appendix itself was no more than 1.1 centimeters. So they actually looked at a few things before they said, hey, let's try antibiotics. Well, in the antibiotic group, and they didn't state which one they used, 93% of the 30 children got better within 24 hours, or I should say showed improvement. Only 3 of that 30 end up having an appendix removed altogether. Now that is pretty much a solid breakthrough. Now to add more to it, it's only a pilot project and they need to do more projects in order to look at it and see exactly if this is something they should recommend on a regular basis. But it does mimic the European studies. Europeans have done the exact same thing and they found the exact same results. So they're able to replicate this experiment over and over again. So if the options are available and there's nothing as far as a rupture or abscess or anything else like that in the appendix that shows up in a CAT scan or ultrasound, it may be something you can consider with caution with a qualified medical professional. After that, we look at the whooping cough. Now, whooping cough vaccine seems to be having a new challenger. What occurred, and this happened actually last year. All right, your vaccine normally contains the Bordetella pertussis toxin, and the filamentous hemagglutinin toxins. You normally have 3 different types of pertussis whooping cough in the vaccine itself. However, due to the fact we've been beating this virus, or I should say bacterium, over the head for years with the exact same 3, we've now caused the evolution of an entirely new strain of whooping cough, and this one is called Protactin-free strain. So, what they did in Australia, they noticed that 80% of the cases that were basically coming down with whooping cough all had this Protactin-free strain, meaning not necessarily that you have a vaccine failure, but the vaccine itself has become obsolete. So before you start looking at the news and media stories saying, oh, vaccine deniers and things like that are causing it, or herd immunity, whatever it comes down to be, they have to start looking to see if it's the Protactin-free strain which is attacking most of the kids, which we already had not too long ago. Now, the researcher said, quote, and I want to say exactly where this was mentioned. It was published in this issue of the Emerging Infectious Diseases, again, being April 2014. They said, quote, the fact that they have risen independently, because you have that Protactin-free strain now in the United States, Europe, and Australia, the fact that they have risen independently in different countries suggests that this is in response to the vaccine. So yes, they're trying to say the vaccine spurred the evolution of another dominant strain of pertussis. So instead of using the same old vaccine over and over again, get the government on board, start looking at different types of ways to increase this Protactin-free immunization if possible, if it even works. Otherwise, if the risk to benefit ratio doesn't match for this vaccine, why bother? It just did nothing more than a lucky rabbit's foot. So again, Protactin-free strain, now in the United States, now in Europe, and obviously well embedded in Australia. And now to SSRIs in pregnancy. It wasn't too long ago, a few weeks ago actually, being April 2014, they said SSRIs, or antidepressants I should say, made no difference in pregnancy. Well, last week they came to a different conclusion. And what they discovered was this, and this is the online edition of Pediatrics, this April 2014. They found out that pregnant women who were taking antidepressants, particularly the class SSRIs, were 3 times more likely to have a child with autism spectrum disorder. 3 times more likely. So yes, antidepressants do make an impact in the first trimester. And then, if taken to the 3rd trimester itself, the children also developed developmental disorders, the strongest in the 3rd trimester on its own. We found, and this is a quote from the researchers, we found prenatal SSRI exposure was nearly 3 times as likely in boys with autism spectrum disorder relative to typical development, with the greatest risk, when exposure took place during the 1st trimester. SSRIs were also elevated among boys with DD, what they call developmental disorders, with the strongest exposure in the 3rd trimester. Also stating, serotonin is critical to early brain development. Exposure during pregnancy to anything that influences serotonin levels can have a potential effect on birth and developmental outcomes. The prevalence of autism disorders, spectrum disorders, continues to rise. This is possibly one potential reason. Now, the researchers also note that maternal depression is also a hazard in itself. However, though, this is definitely now a known. So if there's a concern about autism spectrum disorders, it is something truly to look at as far as whether it's really worth it or not. Feeling a little down may not justify taking an SSRI. Now, also the study too was conducted with over 1,000 children. All right, and the population-based control study was at the University of California, Davis, what's called the Mind Institute. The researchers broke the data down into 3 groups, so this was a well-designed study itself. And it was on the online edition of Pediatrics. Again, a few weeks ago, they said it didn't make any difference. However, it does make a significant difference altogether. And I think that's about all the information I have available.
Okay, thank you very much. Once again, do your research. We've given you nice places to start. Take your health into your own hands. Seriously, look at this research. You can confirm. You can look at healthresearchreport.me for most of the information that Ralph has provided to you on these particular research articles. Thank you very much for joining our show. We appreciate it.